Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn how to get to know a new dataset very effectively using Pandas. So let's get to it. So of course we will be importing our module Pandas, and now we will be using the adult data as a sample to sort of get to know these functionalities of Pandas. So adult data is basically the sort of consensus income data set collected from 1996, and it has a couple of columns. And one thing you have to pay attention when you go about getting to know your data set is that you would go about getting to know numerical attributes and categorical attributes separately, or in different ways. So what I've done here, I have separated these attributes. So now I have my numerical attributes and categorical attributes. So let's start with numerical attributes. When you want to get to know your numerical attributes, there are three things you could do. You could calculate the metrics for central tendencies and dispersion of the population of each column, or you could draw histograms and box plots. All of these basically summarizes your data, and all of them are great and have advantages and disadvantages, and we will talk about them. So the easiest way to do this with Pandas, to calculate the metrics for central tendency and the dispersion of the population, is really using the function describe. So these are all of my data, the numerical data, as you can see. And pay attention, when I'm using the function describe, all I'm doing, I'm applying or asking from the main root of the data frame. But what's going to happen is the data frame, or Pandas, is going to ignore the non-numerical attributes. So it's going to calculate for us the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, Q1, Q2, and Q3. And all of these values are just calculated for us instantly, and now we can start studying them to get to know our data. You have to admit, even though these values or these metrics are great in summarizing the data, but it's very hard to start feeling connected to this data. These metrics are great if you want to use the central tendency and dispersion metrics for algorithmic decision making, but for us to get to know it, I think, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with me, that visualizations are better. So two visualizations that we can use are histogram and box plot. So histogram, to do histogram is so easy. You all need to access a column of your data frame, which is a series, and then use plot.hist and use it as a function. And once you do this, it starts popping out a histogram for each and every one of your columns. So you can see here the numbers. I mean, if you compare with age mean is 38, standard deviation is 13, minimum is 17, and so on and so forth. I mean, these are great summary of the data, but once you look at this gives you so you start feeling connected to the data. There are most of the rows in this data has age less than 40, and then there is this decline. So it's a story that you are seeing from your data because it's now a visualization. We can do even better, and we can also add a box plot right next to our histogram, and it starts to even tell us more story. So let's do it. So next to each histogram, I am also adding my box plot here. So once I click this, I have my histogram here, and then right after I have my box plot. So not only I sort of see what's happening here, but I also see that there are some statistically sort of too high values, or sort of flyers or outliers here. And this is done automatically for every single one of my numerical columns. So you can study them and start getting to know your data. So this was the way we go about getting to know our numerical attributes. For categorical attributes, things are a little bit different. You want to figure out the possible categories of each categorical attributes, and also you want to develop frequency table, and also sometimes do a bar chart to sort of really get to know your attributes. And all of these are very simple in Pandas. So to figure out your possible categories, the key function to use is the function unique that comes after the series that holds the attribute that you're interested in. So what I've done, I have done a loop through all of my categorical attributes, and on each of them I calculate all of the possible values of that column by the function unique. So once I run this, now I know for the work class, these are all my possible values. And I also know there are missing values there. And so on and so forth. This is great to know what are the possible attributes there. If you wanted to sort of have some ideas of, what is the frequency of them, you have to use the frequency table. And to calculate the frequency table in Pandas, you need to use, instead of the function unique, you need to use value counts. Basically counts the values of all the possible values in your column, in your series. So once I use this one, now I start popping out, the frequency of these. So for example, the private work class is the one that has the most number of rows in this data, and so on and so forth. I could do even better than this by plotting this in a bar chart. And all you need to do to add to your code, instead of printing things out, you want to plot them, right? So before we plot them, let's actually see one more step that we can do with the frequency. So we can automatically change these into a percentage by adding normalized true to your code. Now you will see the percentage of these values, and you didn't have to do anything but just add normalized true. And then you can even do better by doing a visualization of the bar charts, and even sort of like start feeling better, or connecting to our data better. I mean, we see 70% here, and then we have 8%. I mean, we do know 73 is much higher than 8, but now here we can actually visually see it, and we can see the magnitude actual in a visualization. And once you start studying these, now you will start knowing your data much better. So these were collections of tools from Pandas you can start using to get to know your data very fast and effectively.